Welcome back, Screenagers. It's time for yet another episode of the Canon, your favorite movie podcast, the one and only movie podcast, providing you with a watch list of the most essential movies ever made. We, of course, have another essential movie for you today. My name is Raf, and I will be your host for this episode and all episodes for the foreseeable future, unless something happens and I get fired from the Wasteland. But joining me today, I'm very excited for this guest, one of our freshest faces and writers over at the Wasteland. You've maybe seen some of her reviews and other articles on the website proper. But if you haven't, she's great and you should definitely check them out. But she's making her Canon podcast debut today. Val, welcome to the show. How's it going? Good to have you. What's going on?
It's going good. I'm excited to be here. I've been really looking forward to this, honestly, making my Canon debut. So excited to be here, excited to be part of the Canon podcast and Screen Age Wasteland. It's been
Hell
good.
yeah. It's been great. So you've been writing for the Wasteland for what, like a year now? How long has it been?
Can't be a year. I literally thought about this. I think it's September of last year. So, like, something like 6 months ish. I guess it's coming up on a year. Jeez, time moves fast.
Yeah. Time flies when you're writing fun reviews.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But we've enjoyed having you join the Saw contributor family. We were talking about it before we started recording, but when you first joined, you were cranking out reviews like it was nobody's business. You were just
Yeah.
we
It
were just
was
running through. It was like every third day I would look up and be like, "Oh, wow, Val has another review up," you know.
yeah, I remember when I first joined, it was kind of my first opportunity to really write for a site. So I was just like, hell yeah, like I'll just write like two a week, whatever. And then like I started to like getting back into like life stuff happening and I was like, that's really not realistic. So definitely kind of scrolled it back from there. But yeah, a lot of my reviews are on the site. Um I I did get the really cool responsibility of doing the monthly TV to stream list, which has been a lot of fun. And I'm glad you picked me for that because I do watch a crap ton of TV. So
Yeah,
I
I love
just,
that.
I haven't had that much trouble coming up with five new shows every single month, which I thought would be hard. But I'm like, no, I watched a ton of TV. So the newest one is actually up. I think I just checked and yeah, it's up today. So if you're looking for something to watch, you want my recommendations, definitely check that
Nice.
out.
Yeah, I saw that you were doing that. That's amazing. I've been doing movies to stream.
I saw that. Yeah, because he told me, he's like, whatever Raf's format is, just do that exactly. And I'm like, okay.
I gotta say, so I don't watch a lot of TV, so I haven't been able to like actually check out the things that you're recommending.
Mhm.
But I do appreciate that you are able to recommend good TV month after month. And it sounds like you have no problems, finding the shows and recommending them across all of the different streaming platforms because
Yeah.
you watch so much TV. I'm not gonna lie, Val, between you and me, movies to stream is always like the most stressful part of my month.
Oh
And that
no, I'm so sorry. No,
and
here's what
that
you gotta
includes like
do.
my job.
A hot tip. You gotta go on Rotten Tomatoes and go most popular streamed movies. And then you just
Yeah.
got some ideas and then go to the streaming service.
I go straight to the streaming service. I guess we'll do a little inside baseball here. I go to all the streaming services and I check through, but I don't want to do what's popular. And then I'm like,
Okay.
well, I've already recommended this movie in another month on a different streaming service, and I don't like to recommend movies that I haven't seen, and I want things that are like slightly kind of like hidden gems, not necessarily just like, this big movie isn't like Dune
Yeah.
2 was now available on HBO Max. Like, go watch that. Like, of course, everyone's already watching Dune 2
Yeah.
on
No, I
HBO
think your
Max.
recommendations have always been great though. And you always try to, and I've sort of modeled this after your list, is like kind of have a genre diversity throughout the
Hmm.
list too, so there's kind of something for everybody. So like on my list I try to like always include at least one animated show because I feel like
Hmm.
animated shows, especially for adults, are like super underrepresented and most of them die on streaming services. And I actually have a dear friend who works in the animation industry in LA, and like he's told me how like hard it is to get like an adult animated show going and get people to watch it. So, and there's lots of good ones, whether they're anime or they're Western animation.
Yeah.
So I always try to include one of those and at least one like real life documentary type show too. So there's kind of something for people who are just like, yeah, no, Last of Us is not my vibe. Like I want something a little bit more low key.
But you always do a good mix. It's like you do a good mix of like there's always an animated show.
Hmm.
You do a good mix of like shows that are current and like in the zeitgeist, like at the moment. So like a White Lotus or The Last
Yeah.
of Us or something like that. But then also like, hey, like remember this show from like a couple years ago that you maybe never got around to? Well, hey, it's all been dumped on Netflix or something. Like
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
you're able to mix it up with that all that stuff too.
Yeah, one show that I mentioned that like nobody commented on it, so I'm sure everyone was just like, "Yeah, sure, Val, like whatever." But like this show just dropped on Hulu and no one has watched it, but it's called Tell Me Lies, and it's kind of like what 50 Shades of Grey would be if it was self-aware and like had good writing, because it's just like, no, these people are toxic and they're bad and the things they're doing are terrible, and the show just more explores like, yeah, how do terrible people operate in the world, like how do they actually function in a
Nice.
relationship, like how does that work? It's not like, oh, you're being terrible to me so I stay in the relationship. It's like, why do people do that? And I'm like, dude, this show is too good, and nobody watches it, but because it's kind of soapy. But
Yeah.
I think if you're into that and you can deal with the soapiness of it and the CW edge, it's really good, and nobody watched it. So
I
yeah,
hadn't heard of it, so
yeah,
that's
it
why
just
you're doing good work. That's why
I
we
try.
need TV to stream every month.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I enjoy it too, and I enjoy recommending anime. I'm gonna keep doing it, even if it makes people upset. Like,
It,
there's good
no,
anime.
you should continue to do that 1000%.
Yeah,
Um yeah, it's tough work, but somebody's got to do it. You
yeah,
know, the two of us we're stepping up to the plate
yeah.
while Sailor and Kane are out making 1,000 different lists for 1,000 different things, you
Oh my
know.
God. Okay, so preview of what's to come. I'm actually doing a list with Sailor. I know. We're doing a list of the top horror television shows. So I already got my
Nice.
write-ups in for that. So that's coming. That's coming probably this month. So I'm comfortable with
Nice.
giving that preview.
Okay, good
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, I don't know that there's a theme for May, um, but that seems like a fun list.
Hmm.
The Yeah, no one is down to make a list quite like Mr. Sailor Monsoon. That guy
He
is just always he's
he's
like
on top
best
of it. Like first he was like,
2024
"Let's do
characters
a
of
hundred," and I was
yeah.
like, "Okay," and he was like, "Wait a minute, I realized I don't care about the bottom 50. Let's just do the top 50." And I was like, that works, and like the top 50, the ones I cared about too. So it worked out, came together surprisingly fast. We agreed on the
Even
top
50
50.
is a lot for horror TV shows. That's yeah, that's a
Yeah,
lot.
there was a few that I was like, this one has to stay, but for the most part, we were in like complete agreement. So yeah,
Are you a big horror fan? Is that
I
your like
am.
go-to genre?
Yeah, I know Mr. Bob Cram is a huge horror fan as well.
Yeah. You
But
guys are gonna have to duke it out for the resident expert
yeah,
there.
no, no, he's been around a lot longer than me. I'm not trying to step on his turf, but I do really enjoy horror, and particularly like the cerebral, character-driven horror, like the Mike Flanagan, Stephen King.
Hmm.
Like,
So I was gonna say, are you gonna try to steal uh Fear Flashback Fridays from Bob?
no, no, I wouldn't do that. No, I don't even watch enough horror. Like, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Like, it's more of a like I'm afraid if I had a commitment to it, it wouldn't be fun anymore when I just throw on a horror movie. You know,
Yeah,
like he could totally keep that.
that's fair. Well, we'll probably have you back on this show in October. I'm sure, yeah, season 6 will probably span through October. So that's when we like to do all of our spooky movies. Sometimes we call it Bobtober, but this year we might have to call it Valtober.
Oh man, I don't want to
Yeah,
steal Bob's turf. I'm not trying to make enemies. I just got
well,
here.
it's a very competitive crew, you know.
Fair
We're all
enough.
no, it's not. Everyone's super nice and super
Yeah.
fun. So there's room for fans of all kind. Um, would we consider The Passion of Joan of Arc a spooky movie? Is this a horror movie in any way, shape,
Ooh.
or form?
See, because
I feel like
one of
there are
the movies
people
it
who
reminded me of was a horror movie, but I don't think so. I
uh,
overall much more of a drama, I think. What do you
that's
think?
fair. I think it's definitely more of a drama, but the exercise of like trying to like spin any movie as a horror movie is always a fun one, and there are a lot of horrific things that happen in this movie.
Mhm.
There's a lot of brutality and there's violence and things of that sort. There are moments where you are shaken to your core, maybe not scared, but
You're
there
on the
are
edge of your
moments that
seat
you're
for
on the
sure.
edge of your seat, and there are ideas within this movie that can and should scare people, but I don't necessarily
Mhm.
know that it is meant to be read as a horror movie. So
Yes,
there it
I would
is.
agree.
That's our stretching of the definition of what horror is and whether or not it applies to this movie specifically.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Do we just want to jump right into the movie? Why we think it's essential, or is that the
We're
vibe?
we're we're here. We're talking about it. We may
All
as
right.
well we may as well jump in. Um, Val, we're talking Passion of Joan of Arc, like we mentioned, a very essential movie. A running theme for season 5 of the show. A lot of movies that I had not seen. This was one of them. This was a movie that I hadn't seen before viewing it for this episode. Uh, Another peek behind the curtain. We had to push our recording time because I hadn't seen the movie, and it would have been a bad idea for us to jump on and talk about it.
It would have worked. Honestly, it worked out better for me too because, like, I told you that like I've been sick. I don't normally sound like this, but I was like coughing bad yesterday, so like it's way more under control today. So like it was a good
it all
call,
it all
honestly.
worked out.
Yeah.
And I got to watch The Passion of Joan of Arc, which moved me to my core for sure. But
Mm.
what was your initial experience with this movie? Like, what initially jumped out at you? Why do you think it's essential? How many times have you seen it? Twice?
Yeah,
Or
so I was gonna watch it twice. I ran out of time. I only watched it once. But I had not seen this before. But part of the reason I wanted to be on this episode was like I haven't watched a ton of silent movies, but what I have watched is a ton of religious movies.
nice.
Because I was raised in like a Christian high control group kind of
Okay.
thing. Like a cult. I won't name the cult here, but it is a cult that has documentaries about it. Um, but I'll let you know which one it is when we're not recording. But uh,
For those not
so
watching, I legit almost just did a spit take of
you
my
did.
water.
Yeah. So um so I kind of went into this movie just hoping like that it really kind of dug deep with like religious themes. Like I think
Mhm.
that movies that do that are really compelling whether or not you subscribe to that particular theology. I think it's just kind of a core part of the human experience and not a lot of movies engage with that in a really compelling way. It's usually like, oh, all religion bad or this religion good. So I really, really liked how they handled Joan of Arc because they didn't really say, oh, yeah, she's totally a prophet. And they also didn't say, oh, yeah, she's totally crazy. They just kind of showed you everything and just said, like, yeah, she's got this kind of peace and aura of like something almost divine, but then she also just seems like a scared teenager. And I think just seeing that character, I mean, you can't talk about this movie without talking about the actress, Maria. Oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher her name. But should have been prepared.
Falconetti.
Falconetti. Wow, I should know that with an Italian last name. But she is incredible in this role. I mean, like you look away, like I looked away from the screen for a second to like get a drink of water or something like that. And you look back and she just draws you in, and you're like sitting on the edge of your seat just watching every micro expression from her face, which is zoomed in the whole time. And it's just like, it takes such a good actor to be able to do this. And I think that I mean, this, as far as I know, and I'm not a film scholar or anything, was like the first film to really do this.
Hmm.
This close up, like raw, none of them wore makeup, which was super uncommon in the silent film era. So it all looks like the harsh lighting on the priest, and then she's kind of softly lit, looking kind of angelic. It's just kind of amazing to watch, honestly. Like, I would recommend this movie to anyone. It's just, it has, I think, broad appeal.
Absolutely. Totally broad appeal. It's essential for a reason, or for many reasons. A lot of reasons that you brought up. So many different avenues that we could go down to, pick up the conversation. I think coming at it from a point of view of like a like story about religion and spirituality is
Mhm.
really interesting. It is also, I mean, it is like technically a courtroom drama,
It
but it obviously
is.
doesn't play out in the way that we typically understand courtroom dramas to play out, right? It is more of a story about um, this human, like religious and spiritual kind of experience, right? It's the passion of Joan of Arc. It's not the
Mhm.
trial of Joan of Arc, which those are two completely different movies.
Mhm.
Obviously, the big selling point of this film is typically people saying, the Falconetti performance at the center of it is the best acting performance ever committed to film, which you watch it and you're like, oh, okay, that's maybe not hyperbole. That was
Yeah. It's kind of
incredible.
fair. I mean, like, I don't
Yeah,
think you
that
can
is
walk
a
away from this movie and be like, oh, yeah, it was fine. Like, no.
yeah, you totally can't. And then the last thing that you brought up, which I think is also super interesting, and I think we'll get into, is like how it's like shot and presented to us. And there's so much going on in terms of like uh how the yeah, like the character or the actor is not wearing any makeup or anything like that. Like, this is not really a silent movie that moves like a lot of other silent movies that I've
Definitely.
seen. And like, my knowledge of silent movies is like fairly limited. Like, I have not seen a whole lot, but from like what it is that I am familiar with and how they typically move, from what I've seen, like this is something unlike so many others. But I guess since the main draw or selling point is the performance at the center, let's maybe start there. Do you have anything else just like about what it is that Falconetti's doing as Joan of Arc? Do you agree that it is the best performance ever, committed to film?
I do kind of agree, honestly, because I'm trying
I
to
think it,
think, like,
I
what would compare?
I
I
would
mean,
throw one out there.
okay.
Eddie Murphy and Norbit.
I've never actually seen Norbit.
Oh,
Or are you making a joke?
I was making a joke. It's just like a
Okay.
silly, it's like a silly Eddie Murphy performance.
Okay. I mean, I think Eddie Murphy's a good actor,
Yeah.
but maybe not as good as Maria Falconetti. But I read something that she like really that the actor that there was some Kubrick kind of I think you'll know what I mean.
Yeah, some Hitchcockian.
Hitchcockian behind the scenes things to make her do that performance. Um, if so, that's incredibly unfortunate. What she does, I think the like wide-eyed kind of far off stance gaze that she has, it almost came off to me as though like she's seeing these visions in real time, like right there, and then just
Mhm.
being like, yeah, this is what the angel told me, which is kind of like in a different performance it might come off as silly, but she's so freaking earnest that it's just like, no, I kind of believe her. Like, by the end of the movie, I feel like there's a little bit of like, even if you don't believe that she is, in the context of this film, a prophet, You're like,
Mhm.
something's going on. Like, she is not just like an average crazy person. There's no way.
Do you want to just quickly mention what some of those Hitchcockian, Kubrickian like methods that allegedly may have happened were?
Yeah, I remember one was like they had her sit on a hot stone or something like that to make her look in pain. Was that one of
Yeah,
them?
it was something like that. So that
I don't
she would
remember the
like be
details.
in pain, but then like couldn't express it, so that you would see in her eyes that she was like holding on to this deep pain or something.
Oh,
But I don't know if there are other things that you had heard.
yeah, no, that was the main one I had heard. But then after the fact, I guess that the director, unlike like, Alfred Hitchcock with Tippi Hedren or whatever, is like really, really complimentary of her and like very protective of her. So people are like, oh, it's not really the same. And I'm like, it isn't, but also like you can get a good performance out of your actors without torturing them. Like it's not necessary.
Yeah. It is also interesting if that did happen, just like how much that mirrors like the story of Joan of Arc within the
Yeah.
movie of like
Oh, geez. That's
of
dark, man.
super, super, super dark.
Oh,
um
man. Stop
yeah,
torturing actors.
I shouldn't be laughing at how dark it is. But it also like one thing that I couldn't stop thinking about, and maybe we can just dive into like the like religious, spiritual, um, theological like aspect of this movie, and
Hell
like
yeah.
it seems like all three of those things are like kind of different, even though like we kind of know them
Yeah.
to mean the same thing. But like all three of those things are like at play or interplaying with each other in this movie. But I couldn't stop thinking about just like, and I think this will come up in my in recommendations, but the like role and place of women within organized religion
Mhm.
is, it's never like explicitly stated, but it is like so obvious that that is being explored in this movie because
Yeah.
of the entire movie.
Yes.
So I don't know what you thought about like that specifically, or just like everything that's happening around like the religious aspect of this film in particular, and of like Joan of Arc as a character.
Yeah, yeah. It was really interesting because I was thinking about it from like a religious theological standpoint, but also from the historical standpoint. Because at one point I was watching it, and my husband's a huge like history head, and he's like super pro Joan of Arc. Like he thinks she's the coolest
Yeah.
ever. So I was like,
Huge
"Want
Joan
to
of Arc
watch?"
head.
Yeah, I was like, "Want to watch this silent film with me?" He was like, "No," but um, um, no, but he told me, he's like, it's important to remember that this was not a French court. This was an English court. So they weren't taking into account, like, oh, hey, you got us these really cool, like, military victories and stuff, because, like, a French Catholic court may have taken that into account. Whereas, like, this is an English court, and English was at war with France. So they're like, oh, yeah, we super don't like you from the get. So that exists. But yes, the her being female is a big part of it because my husband actually told me, he's like, what she was executed for, like actually historically, was not heresy, it was cross-dressing. So like they were like, well, we can't technically nail you on the heresy charge, but you know what we can nail you for is dressing like a dude.
Yeah.
And and they kind of, and the director, to his credit, did a ton of research. Like I think he researched for a year before he even started writing the movie. And
Mhm.
that is very prevalent in the movie. Like they keep repeating it over and over and over because even though they express a ton of anger at the stuff she says about God, they're not really condemning her as a heretic. They're condemning her for wearing men's clothing, which is so interesting. Like
Yeah.
you'd think that it's like you're calling yourself a modern day prophet. I mean, by most church traditions, whether they're liturgical or Protestant, would think that's bad, but they weirdly don't bring that up, which is kind of interesting. And maybe it has to do with her whole believability in some ways.
Yeah, maybe there is an aspect. I mean, there are some characters that it does seem like are they believe what it is that she's saying. They're sort of buying her story or her side of the story because she is so believable. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's, you know, she's she's being execuard
Wearing
for
pants.
for wearing, pants and men's clothing. And it's like, again, just right, we know the history of sort of like Christianity and just like organized religion for the most part, right? Like I don't want to throw all organized religion into this, but
Yeah, sure.
certainly within Christianity of like being very exclusionary for women and like their place within the role and like their place within the church and roles that they can hold in terms of like positions of power or
Absolutely.
whatever it may be within the religion itself. And like, no, of course not. Like, of course a woman cannot pretend to be a man and then like, only a dude could be a prophet. Like maybe that's what they were mad at.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good point. I think another thing that was really interesting from like a church tradition standpoint is at the end when they offer her Eucharist and she's like and they're like, "But if you recant, you can have Eucharist." And she like is really suffering with that choice like more than the other choices they presented to her. And like I myself attend a liturgical church, like a queer affirming, really cool liturgical church, but still. And like I get it. Like Eucharist is a big freaking deal. Like it is like the important thing that you do that's like an outward practice of what you believe. So
For the
like
uninitiated.
yeah, sorry, I'm using a church word. Eucharist is like the blood and wine. Passover. It's referred to as
Okay.
many other things. Communion is probably a more common
Okay.
terminology for that. It's when you get bread and wine and
The
the
body of
Last
Christ and
Supper.
the blood of Christ. Okay.
Yeah. And some churches believe that it's literally church history moment transposing into literal blood and literal body like inside of you. There's a
Hmm.
fancy word for that. It is not coming to me. Some churches are just like, yeah, it's symbolic. You just like do it because it's a religious practice, which is I would say most churches believe that, but Catholics do actually believe that it becomes the body. So like she is literally in that moment being denied the body and blood of Christ. So that's like
Yeah.
part of her devastation in that moment.
Also interesting because a lot of the treatment of Miss Joan of Arc kind of mirrors the treatment of one Jesus Christ.
Yes, yeah. I don't want to bring up the Mel Gibson in the room at all.
But it's
That
there.
other passion movie.
Yeah.
Because one of these movies is good and the other one is something else, and I have
Yeah.
seen it. But um, but I think yes, I think
But
that's
only
on
one is
her.
getting a sequel. So,
Oh my god.
you know,
No. No, like if Duke asked me to review that movie, I swear to God, like I'll be like, "You gonna buy my ticket? I'm not going."
you swear to Joan of Arc.
I swear to Joan of Arc. No, I saw Passion of the Christ when I was 10,
Mm,
so it was too much for me at that point.
yeah.
But um, no, they do mirror each other pretty heavily. I think particularly in the scene in the Bible where Jesus is being um, judged by the religious leaders before he's brought to like um, uh, the Romans and then crucified. And they're like hurling insults at him and yelling. It's very much, it feels intentional that like it's
Hmm.
the same kind of scene. And even though she isn't tortured, I mean, that sort it all follows the exact same format almost of like being tortured and then brought back and then being walked out and not crucified, but burned at the stake. It feels very much the same format. I think that's very intentional.
It feels super intentional. And again, with like the flipping on the head of like, what does it mean when this figure who is claiming to have, spoken directly to God and God is speaking through them? What happens when that figure is a woman as opposed to
Uh,
a man, When it's
yeah,
Jesus, we do all the torture and we shout him down, but then we spend 2,000 years being like, yeah, that guy was pretty rad. But with someone like Joan of Arc, where like there is some, we've done some mythologizing around her, but certainly not to the same extent. And I don't know that
yeah,
this movie is like totally asking the question of like why it is that we don't do that, but I think that it is like very much so there to be pondered a little bit at least.
I definitely think so because I think if the movie didn't want you to ponder that, they would have played up the crazy a lot more. And I
Hmm.
just think there's so many moments where she just seems like the rational faith person of faith in the room. Like I think there's one quote that I was like she said and I was like, "Oh, that's good." Where they ask her like, "Are you in a state of grace?" And she says, "If I am, let me be in it, and if I am not, may God take me to it." And I was like, "Whew,
Bars.
okay."
Yeah.
And there were moments like that where I was like, I think you can tell too when like somebody writes a movie that's set in like the Christian tradition and has no familiarity with it, like not even from like a historical point of view. And it's clear like they've I don't think it's portrayed badly. I think it's portrayed really, really well, both in the people who are against Joan of Arc and in Joan of Arc herself. Like they all nobody feels like a mustache twirling villain so much. Like they all feel like they have their reasons for what they believe.
That's a really good point, that it does feel very rooted within an actual understanding of the religion and not just like an outsider like sort of like hurling sort of like judgment upon it. You
Yeah.
know, they I think obviously the Joan of Arc character is much more sympathetic than any of the judges or anything like that. But like you're saying, like they all, you know, there is reason for what they're doing. They're not like cartoonishly evil. They
Mhm.
might be at some points, and it's easy for us to sort of like dismiss and disagree with what it is that they're doing to our main character, but it never feels like super over the top. But then also with her, um, it doesn't just feel like she's like totally leaning into this is just a crazy person who we can totally ignore.
Yeah.
Um, the I think again, we were talking before about how it's the passion of Joan of Arc and not the trial of Joan of Arc, but
Mhm.
like it also could have been about like all of her exploits leading up to this trial. So like what do you think about this movie being like extremely pointed in taking the transcript the from her court trial and just like using that as the entire story for this movie as opposed to like showing us like anything that happened prior?
I think it's sort of meant to humanize her. Like they almost don't want to make her a hero in the traditional like action movie sense because
Mhm.
they could. I mean, like she won battles, but it seems like they're just more interested in kind of showing her as a person first. And that is kind of rare. It's kind of wild thinking about it because this movie came out in the 20s and we're seeing like a female character being like fully explored and be really complex. And that's a very unique choice and I actually think it's a much better choice than trying to cram in, her whole life story into an hour and a half. Just take this one piece of her life that really shows us who she is in her final moments. I think it was a good choice overall. Like what do you think?
I like it. I think it's a great choice. I also think taking the trial and doing just like this exploration of her as a human and not focusing on the like courtroom drama aspect of it. Although that would have been extremely difficult to do as a silent movie.
Yeah.
Um like like how do you think that this movie would have been different if it were a talkie? And do you think there would have just been like a lot more dialogue, or like how do you think it would have played out if that were the case?
Sure it would have worked. Like, because I think, like, would it be more like a 12 Angry Men kind of thing? And then if
Yeah.
so, there's so many of them in the room. Like, would her voice have been lost? Like,
Yeah.
amongst everybody else? Like, she's given so much focus because of the way it's shot and because it's a silent film. And I almost like can't picture it being a talking film because I feel like it would just be all these men shouting and she would say one thing and she wouldn't be the focus anymore.
Yeah, it would be like A Few Good Men, where you
Yeah.
know it could be right like that. I think that's what's so interesting about this movie specifically is that there are so many different versions of this story that you could tell. It could be Joan of Arc, action hero, where she's just like off winning battles and then it just ends with the trial and her getting burned at the stake. It could be the trial of Joan of Arc, where it's a snappy courtroom drama that Aaron Sorkin wrote,
Yeah.
and it's it's really
For
just
better
like
or for
about like
worse.
just about all like the super quick dialogue and stuff. But this one does become like this really beautiful kind of like, I guess, like meditation on like the the human and like her spirit and all of that, as opposed to any sort of other way. We talked a little bit about how this movie's shot.
Mhm.
I feel like that is just as important, if not more important, than all the other elements. Like I feel like the acting performance that we get is because of how it's shot. So, do you want to talk about that for a little
Yeah.
bit or a lot of bit?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you can talk about this movie without talking about how it's shot. I mean, it's just, are we allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
okay. If it's gonna hurt the algorithm, I won't.
No, no.
Uh,
Go for it.
no, no, this movie's fucking beautiful. It's just like every scene you're looking at it and being like, how does it look this good? And it's 100 years old, like, or almost 100 years old. Like, I mean, it's just, even by modern standards, like I watched it in 4K on Max,
Hmm.
and it was just, it is such an immaculately shot movie. I mean, even the like moving shots too, not even just the close-up shots, just hold up so well by even modern movie making standards. But I think, yeah, the choices he made of how to light certain things, like how he lights her versus how he lights them, of how they're like looking super harsh and angry, and she's looking kind of serene most of the time. And I mean, it's just, it draws you in with how it even looks, even when they're not saying anything. And there's a lot of time where they're not saying anything, but it works because of how it's shot. It wouldn't work if it wasn't so gorgeous.
Yeah, it's so amazing. It's such a bold way to make a movie. I can't credit the writer, but I was when I was like doing some like reading about the movie, prepping for this. There's one article that I came across talking about how this movie like breaks so many rules of cinematic language that like should make it sort of like illegible to us as movie fans. Like there's like no continuity editing whatsoever in this. There's like a very weird like lack of spatial awareness between like cuts and like the way that characters are like looking off screen at what should be other characters and like their relationship to other characters. Obviously there's like nothing in the way of like an establishing shot within this movie. Like it's all very tight. Most of the shots are close-ups. Most of uh the shots of Joan herself are close-ups. I think there are two medium shots and like one or two shots where she's in a wide.
And it's
And the
mostly when
rest of
they're taking her from room to room. It's not even like anything's happening in those shots.
yeah. Which again, like going back to her performance, so much of it is in her face. It's not even like a full physical body performance. It's like 80% eyes.
Yes, 100%. Yes, I completely agree.
It's so good. But yeah, so like there's all of that, and then there's like also the backgrounds that are used. So like it's mostly these like close-ups of her and her face or of other characters' faces, and it's just like a white backdrop. So we're still like not even really like understanding like where they are within the courtroom or anything like that. So it really does just become this like um this exercise in just like reading someone's face to understand everything that's going on within a certain character or like a certain scene. Uh there's also a lot of like weird like funky camera movement when he's showing the judges versus like all of the shots of her are pretty much stills. they're
Mhm.
like lingering shots on her faces, and there's a lot of like quick edits between the other guys. And
Yeah.
like none of it should make sense, but because it's all so wacky, it makes total and complete sense. I
It
don't know if that makes any
is.
sense.
No, I do, because I think that probably the first 5 minutes or so of the movie, I was like, "Am I getting this? Like, or am I missing things?" Because, like, they are talking and not all of it is on cue cards, and there
Mhm.
are a lot of cuts. I read somewhere that there's, like, 1,200 cuts in this movie, which is crazy if so. Um, and when you just let it, like, the movie sort of wash over you and just follow it as best you can and don't worry about it, you realize you're getting everything you need to get. Like, it's not, you're not missing anything. Like, and all the scenes where she's saying yes and it's not cue carded, it's fine because you can tell that that's what she said, first of all, by
Mhm.
reading that she said "we," and then you can read by their reaction too, because they get up and they stamp their feet and they're screaming at
Yeah.
her, and it's like, it all works. You can tell what's happening at any given point, and yeah, even though it's chaotic, it's you're totally locked in and getting it.
This is gonna I didn't think that I was gonna bring it up again. I think I've mentioned this take on every episode about a
Alright.
silent movie, but I'm gonna throw it at you now since we're
Yeah.
here. All of this talk about like the way that the movie's shot and still understanding it, um, because of how it's shot and because of how it moves, even on like a very like deep subconscious level, right? Like not everyone listening is like a movie weirdo like the two of us, where we're like, well, this is why it being shot this way is helping us understand XYZ.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Brings me to my take that every year we should have 10 to 15 silent movies made by contemporary filmmakers, and all of the big filmmakers should be forced to make a silent movie because it would truly show us who is totally in touch with cinematic language and is able to provide us with a good movie. Like, would
God.
you not love to see Paul Thomas Anderson or Ryan Coogler make a silent movie?
I would love to see, like, Martin Scorsese make a silent movie. Could you imagine? God. Oh, now I want this. Like, now
Right?
you put this idea in my head, and I'm like, now I'm pissed off that it's not gonna happen. Give me, like, an Osgood Perkins silent film,
Yeah.
like,
He would crush it,
something crazy. Oh my god. Damn. I wish that was our reality that we lived in.
right? Yeah, and it
Remember
would
that
also
silent film
sorry,
came
go
out a
for it.
while ago, but it wasn't, like, good, or I don't know, it was called The Artist. I
The
didn't
Artist, I haven't seen in, like, 10 years. I don't know that it was that good.
oh,
Ugh.
what a bummer. Imagine if it had been good and then we got, like, a silent film revival.
Yeah, it would be cool. Damien Chazelle, like, give us a silent movie, Damien. Greta, give us a silent movie, you
Greta.
know? It would also be cool for audience members because, it would, like, teach us or reteach us how to watch movies in certain ways.
And read while watching movies, because some people don't see foreign films because 'cause they're like, "I don't like reading subtitles," and if people got more cued in to just reading normally while watching movies, then maybe more people would broaden their horizons in terms of cinema.
Yeah. But a silent movie also makes you like it makes you lock in and watch the movie. So like again, you might not be consciously thinking about what a certain camera movement means for like a character's inner struggle or like motivations or whatever. You might not be thinking about it, but like it does help you understand. So like when you watch something like The Passion of Joan of Arc and you're like, wow, I can see like all of the conflict within her eyes or the way that her like mouth twitched right there, you know, that
Yeah.
then we then take that to other movies that we watch. So then in, Jurassic Universe 8, we don't need every character to like lay out for us like everything that is going on and like why it is scary, or like a flashback to like cut between two things to tell us why we're supposed to think what we need to think. Like it would just make both filmmakers and film audiences just a bit better in terms of what it is that we're doing. That's my big
Yeah.
take
No,
that I always have for silent movies whenever we talk about
I
silent movies.
completely agree, honestly. And I think that there are, like, things that silent films do that we should just bring back in talking films too. Like, one of the things, like the close up, like the close up on the face that's just like a still image. There's actually a scene, and I don't know if you've watched it, in Severance, that does this. And I think it's one of the best scenes, and it's just
Yeah.
these two characters, and it's probably a good 45 seconds, and it's just these two characters staring at each other trying to read each other's facial expressions, and I was like, god, we need more scenes like this actually,
Yeah.
because if you got the actors to do it and do it well, it's so impactful, and like people don't just have to be like, hi, exposition, exposition, we have to go to this room to get
Yeah.
that thing. Like you can convey so much just by letting the characters emote.
Do you think this performance uh is like the most influential acting performance of all time? Like would we get sort of the like method acting boom of like Brando and, Pacino and De Niro and like, through all those guys up to Daniel Day-Lewis? Like would we have Daniel Day-Lewis without The Passion of Joan of Arc?
That's a good question. I mean, I feel like I don't know enough about like film history to adequately answer. I would assume yes, because this film is just so good for when it came out. Like, there's no way that this wasn't looked at and gone, okay, we need to be able to do this or something like this because it's amazing. And you could see like the influence in like some of the people you mentioned for sure. I have no idea if they've like genuinely cited this being like, we were trying to do this in this movie.
Yeah. I'm under the assumption that again from based on the little that I've seen of other silent movies that the performances in those they were a bit bigger, a bit broader, a bit more theatrical, and this one
Sure.
is really like honed in, um not really like naturalistic, but it's very like it's a very internal acting performance as opposed to like a big external acting performance. And I feel like a lot of what we have seen throughout the years in terms of like the people who we consider the best, like a Daniel Day-Lewis, it is like trying to internalize the character as much as possible. And I feel like that kind of all comes from here, which was like extremely revolutionary for silent films. Um, at least that from my understanding.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because the only other silent film I've seen recently was City Lights, which is also in the canon.
Yes.
It's a great movie, but not anything like this movie.
Yeah.
Much more bombastic, much more slapstick. Still wonderful to watch, but it it is it is so not intimate. Like not intimately examining its characters at all. Its characters are not complicated or flawed really in the way that all the characters in this are. Like these characters do feel like people. Like even the ones that are
Mhm.
kind of evil, you're like, I get your reasons, even though I don't agree with them.
Yeah. As I kind of want to come back to the like religious
Yeah.
spiritual aspect because I feel like you've got some goods that you can offer us. It seems like
Oh
this might
no.
be it
I've
might be
oversold my experience.
slightly within your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But what do you sort of make of like of those the are they English or are they English supporting
They're
Frenchmen?
English. Well, I mean, they're English historically. They speak French in this movie, but this is also a French movie. So I think that's just
Mhm.
why everyone's speaking French. But historically, they were an English court trying a French war criminal, essentially.
Mhm. So, okay, were at this point in history, were the English also Catholic? Was this
Yes.
pre? Okay.
They're definitely
Um,
Catholic.
so, what's an interesting thing? So last week we were talking about The Adventures of Robin Hood, which
Uh-huh.
is a story about a 12th century, 13th century English figure who is very upset with um, either French or French sympathetic figures within England.
Hmm.
This week, we're talking about a 15th century figure who is upset about English and English sympathizing figures within France. Um, the, they just couldn't figure it out for hundreds of years. Just
Yeah. Yeah.
constantly
I
going
mean,
back and forth. But two like larger than life figures who end up becoming, you know, part myth, right?
yeah.
Which is super interesting.
Yeah, and it's interesting how Joan of Arc is even considered, like, obviously she's the patron saint of France. So like she's very, and she has been sainted by the Catholic
Hmm.
Church. But I mean, then there's like, I mean, church tradition is, I mean, there's 20,000 church denominations like in the world. So I
Hmm.
mean, how people feel about Joan of Arc really depends on like who you talk to. I think in general, like, like Catholic and then by association, like Anglican, Episcopalian, they're going to feel pretty positive about her just as a religious figure. I think that Protestants probably think she was a heretic, like weirdly as that is, because,
Interesting.
well, first of all, Protestants don't like women as much. Sorry, that's good. Don't clip that. That'll piss people off. But
Catholics famously, very, very accepting of women and all things that they
uh,
do, and allowing them to fully participate in the church and, and all that it
yeah,
has to offer.
yeah, that was not a thing that tracks well with this movie at all. No,
Yeah, I heard the
no,
next pope is going to be a woman.
oh man, could you imagine? But um, no, no, Catholics like women like saints. Like women can
Yeah,
be saints. Like those are prior women. Today's
yeah,
women,
no,
those women in history, hundreds of years removed, they're
yeah,
cool. But like modern day women, no. I mean, like the Episcopals like to party. I say that because that's my church tradition. But like they're like women in leadership, like LGBTQ in leadership. Come on in, you're all
yeah,
cool. So like they're probably fine. But I think in general, like the way I was raised in my Christian tradition, Joan of Arc was not a Christian. And that's so interesting
interesting.
because, and this wouldn't have been considered a Christian film, even though I totally think it is. Like not in the proselytizing sense, but in
Hmm.
just thematic sense. Like I think it's drawing a clear parallel in the theming between like what is faith and what is
Hmm.
organized religion. And I think Joan of Arc is kind of representing faith, like just pure unadulterated faith, and maybe that's unexplainable and maybe that's mystic
Hmm.
and maybe it doesn't fit very neatly within the organization of religion that she's a part of, but does that mean that it's wrong? And I think
Yeah,
good movies about faith do this, like draw this parallel. And it's really good. It's a good discussion. I think it's an idea that most people can relate to just in the thought of having faith in something as part of the human experience of like it doesn't fit neatly in our definition, our organized definition of this. So is it still real? And is what she's experiencing still real, even if we don't get it? Like,
yeah. You know, there's there's a great bit. I think it's in the opening of the movie where they're sort of like laying the background or the backdrop for what's happening. And on the text, they say it was one religious woman versus really skilled theologians, and it was like that's the choice of those words feels extremely deliberate, right? Where
yeah.
what you're talking about, the faith versus like the organized, which is I think something that the Catholic Church has been struggling with for its entire existence. And
The church, capital C church, has been struggling with that for its entire existence, really.
yeah, and it's, I mean, perhaps like organized religion has been dealing with that question for all of like humanity's existence.
Yeah.
And I think for anyone who is like interested in Catholicism specifically, because I feel like it's like the most obvious there, that
Uh-huh.
always becomes like the most interesting thing. I was not raised Catholic or anything. Like my dad's Catholic, my mom is Methodist, so like it was a pretty like religious household,
Uh-huh.
but they both have always like struggled with like religion as an organized entity versus just like a place to find faith. And I feel like that, like you're saying, like that's all that this movie is. And Joan of Arc as a character, specifically in this movie, right, is
Mhm.
um, someone who is more so worried about their faith than they are with like the rules of the religion. And like you said, like there are some of the best movies are about that. We might get into it in recommendations,
Yeah,
but
we're definitely going to get into it in
yeah,
recommendations. I mean, we're probably thinking of the same movie right now.
I don't know. There's so many
Maybe?
that
Okay.
yeah.
And a TV show. I'm thinking of a TV show as well. But yeah, I was so scared when you said Methodist that you were going to come out and be like, and I'm Protestant. So I was so offended by that joke you made about Protestants
Yeah.
earlier. No, yeah, I do think that's so on purpose that they're like this woman versus these theologians. And it's just like these are the educated class in terms of religious tradition. And what does this farm girl who can't even read know about
Yeah.
God? But yet she seems sure. That's the other thing. She's certain. She is like 100% certain. And even when we see her, I mean, we're getting into spoilers, I guess, like at
Is
the
it
end of the
spoilers for a story that's,
for a
several
story that's
hundred
100
years old?
years. Yeah, I mean, when you see her recant and then take it back, it's not because she's not sure, it's because she's scared of dying.
Hmm.
Because it almost feels like she's at war with herself and this side of her that is like finds this peace and comfort in her God and in her faith, and this side of her that is just this 19-year-old who's scared of dying.
Hmm.
And you sort of see that in the performance. Like she kind of looks terrified and then she'll look like peaceful and serene and then she'll be crying and then she'll look like totally joyous. And she kind of alternates and oscillates between those two emotions the whole movie.
Yeah. It's like an internal battle between her faith and just like the real tangible
The real
uh,
tangible, like, yeah, being scared of dying, like most
yeah.
people are.
Do you think that we get that same kind of struggle with some of the other characters? Like, even though they're not as like fully fleshed out, like I feel like there are moments where you can see that none of them really have any like deep security in their faith. That it's all just like rules based, like by the book sort of stuff, and not actually like coming from some like deeper um contentment with their faith and their understanding of like their spiritual connection to, you know, God or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think that that is very much the vibe of most of them. And I think like some of them are characterized a little differently. Like some of them kind of speak to her with a lot more gentleness than others to kind of just give the idea of like this is a diverse group of people. Some of them are really hateful towards her and some of them are just kind of like, we wish you'd recant so we don't have to do this.
Yeah.
But they all do have this kind of ideology of like you have to do the thing because the thing is the rule, and if you don't do the rule then you can't go to heaven. And I mean, in the Christian tradition today, that's called fundamentalism, where it's like the Bible is a literal word of God. If you don't believe that it is literal history, then you are going to hell. And I would argue that most Christians on the planet don't believe that. Just in terms of like the diversity of thought in the entire world, like the Eastern Church and the Western Church. Um, but that's kind of where this idea stems from of like puritanical tradition and Catholic tradition of just like these are the rules, this is what you believe, and if you don't believe that, then eternal hellfire.
My favorite Catholic rule is knowing when you have to sit versus stand versus kneel during mass. And
See,
like it's so funny seeing people who have never been to a Catholic mass like go to like
they're just watching everyone else
a
being like,
Catholic
okay,
wedding, and like if you've been to like several Catholic masses, you just sort of like know, and it
yeah.
comes as second nature, and then you see other people and they're like, what the hell are you guys doing?
It's so true. It's like some churches, like my church, try to make it like really easy for them. They just like literally say we all sit down at this point, like in the
Yeah.
bulletin, so
Yeah.
people can like follow along. But I think that, yeah, I went to a few Catholic weddings because I mean I have a Sicilian background, so I went to a lot of like Catholic services, funerals, and weddings, mostly for my Sicilian family. And yeah, I was confused the whole time. Like I was like, okay, I have no idea when to sit or stand or what to say in response. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna not say anything, I guess. I mean, because you just kind of have to know all of it.
You have to know all of it, and if you don't know all of it, right, including knowing the rule that you can't say that you know, who's the angel that came to speak to her? Michael?
Michael, yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the rules too. You have to know when to sit, you got to know when to stand, and you got to know that you can't say that Michael came down to speak to you, to offer you the word of God, for him to speak through you or whatever, you know?
Yeah. It's funny too because these rules aren't like super consistent. Because if we're looking like, like a textualist argument, getting back into our Joan like law background, um, of like looking at the text of the Bible, like why would they be so mad about her being in a state of grace if we're like looking at the actual scriptures? But they're so mad about it. And it's strange. It's almost like the rules or their understanding of it sort of
Mhm.
takes over any other possible interpretation whatsoever because they just need the rules to be in their understanding because there's actually this theology book that has this analogy of like your faith being like a brick wall, and if you remove
Mhm.
like one brick from the bottom it's like the whole thing collapses. And I think like that's sort of like demonstrated by these guys because it's like, yeah, if they change their mind about like one little thing and be like, yeah, well, maybe Michael did speak to Joan. It's like, oh, well, then my entire understanding of my faith
Yeah.
collapses. That doesn't
Which is,
work.
to me, like, a lot of what they display isn't faith, though.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just,
legalism.
yeah, it's just an understanding of rules and order, which are obviously things that, like, as humans, we sort of like inherently feel the need to like to have.
Hmm.
And um oftentimes religion has offered that kind of like rule and structure for us, as opposed to just like a guiding path for a faithfulness or like a spirituality that can then like help guide you through your life, which is what Joan has. Like, she has that spiritual, that spirituality guiding her through life, and like that's why she is able to do the things that she does. That's why she was able to lead those, French villagers to those victories in the fields against the English soldiers, not because of like some like structure and rule that she had. So that, that tug of war is also like pretty apparent in this movie, even though again it's never like explicitly stated, but um it's all sitting there, sort of not under the surface, but it's sitting there for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, the technical term for that, I guess, is moral deism of just
Hmm.
like, it doesn't matter who the god is. Then what matters is the rules that the god made so that we can follow them and feel secure or sure in those rules. But the difference is that, like, Joan is sure in her understanding of a divine being, and
Hmm.
they're sure in their rule book, like, period.
Yeah.
And it becomes so apparent because like the moments where she's like reaching out to the divine, they just kind of seem baffled by it mostly. Like
Hmm.
why would you like try to talk to God right now? It's like, don't you all want to talk to God?
Yeah, isn't that the
Like,
point of all this? Isn't that the
yeah.
point of like, why we're dedicating our lives to God? To
Yeah, it's such an interesting parallel, but I think it's done so well that even if you're just somebody who's like, yeah, I'm not like a person of faith, that's not for me, you can still like see the kind of beauty in that of just being like, yeah, I believe in this thing and it makes me want to like serve people and serve my community and be a better person. And that's like, I think that's a really positive thing.
I think it's a super positive message. Um, Val, I did not think that we were going to dive so deeply into religious talk, although it makes a lot of sense for
Yeah,
this
it's a
movie
very religious
because
movie.
it is an extremely religious movie. And I'm happy that you joined to talk about it. I think, you know, not to knock anyone else who may have joined, but I think the conversation could have easily just gone into what makes Falconetti's performance amazing, which is very, very, very
Is
true.
amazing.
But I think that is ground that has been thoroughly explored, and I think we I think we got into some interesting stuff here.
Yeah,
Is there
I love talking about like religious movies. I just think it's super interesting, even if it's like a religion I don't practice or a religion
Mhm.
I don't agree with. I'm just kind of like, I think humans trying to connect with the divine is really cool, and I love seeing filmmakers' interpretation of that.
Yeah, it's and I think this is one of the better religious spiritual movies that I've seen, and I think obviously exploring it through the lens of someone who is brutalized for their faith
Mhm.
is really interesting. I think the sort of like what we were talking about with in terms of like the need for like rules versus actual faith is obviously a ongoing discussion
Oh,
within
definitely.
religion. Um, we're also we're coming up on a couple of weeks the on the anniversary of her death. It's at the end of this
Yeah.
month. We're also just starting um, talks for and deliberations for a new pope and like the Catholic Church. Again, like if you are at all interested in the Catholic Church, like that is something that is constantly a point of conversation. Obviously, a point of conversation within this movie. Um, but yeah, Val, anything else? We didn't even talk about, which I don't know what the like historical context of what was going on in France at the time that this movie was made, and maybe like why they felt a need to retell the story of one of the most famous French individuals to ever live.
Yeah, I don't know why exactly, but I the research I did, which was pretty surface level, was just that they commissioned, like the French government commissioned this film.
Mhm.
And the director, I think, is Danish.
Yeah.
But he did his research, and the original cut of this movie, I mean, it's an amazing story. I was almost lost media. The version
Yeah.
that like we know and have seen, because the French Archbishop was like, "Nah, cut this movie down to like 60 minutes." And a whole half hour was cut out of this movie, and I think it was something crazy, like a janitor was cleaning out an old room and like found the original cut of this movie by accident. Like,
Oh wow.
I think some point, like I don't exactly know the exact date, but we have the version we have today because it was found by accident, which is
Wow.
pretty amazing.
Thank you to that janitor.
Yeah,
Um,
seriously.
yeah. So you watch the version that's on Max, which I believe is
Yeah.
um the
It's
latest like
it's the
restored.
Criterion
It's the
restoration.
Criterion
I
restoration,
totally recommend it.
which features a really, really, really good score. Um,
Yes.
I also think the version that both of us watched is is displayed in like a classic like 24 frames per second, but there's another version that's like 20 frames per second that's like a little
Okay.
bit longer and also doesn't include the score, which
Yeah.
seems like a totally different viewing experience.
I've seen clips of
Where
that version. It looks very different.
it feel like that must feel like you're like going through the passion with Joan of Arc and not because the score like kind of bangs
Oh, the
in
score's
a
so I wanted to talk about this because I fucking love a choral score.
yeah, let's
And
talk about it.
oh, this one's so good. Like I was like, I'm very moved by like choral music generally. Like I've been in choir since I was like 12 to current day. I am in choir.
Mhm.
Um, so I just yeah, the music in this rules. Like, and I've heard that there's a couple different versions of it. I've heard that I think there's one version that's scored with like more modern compositions, like to fit the tone of each scene,
Mhm.
like somebody like kind of arranged it, but I don't think you need to do that. The score is awesome. Like the way it kind of wanes and like builds in the more emotional moments. Like I think particularly of especially the scenes where it builds, like in the torture scene and in the end scene of like the town in frenzy. It's just like, dude, it's I can't
It
do it justice, but it's so good.
it's great. Um, I might be going crazy. This might be absolutely insane take, but bear with me if you will. At
Okay.
some points, it felt like some of the string parts of the score, it kind of read like some like indie sleaze kind of stuff. Were you getting that at all, or is that just me? Was I the
I don't
only one?
I wasn't, but, like, I don't know, like, listen, like, I do have a music degree, but, like, it was so long ago that, like, if somebody asked me, like, "Oh, like, so what periods were influenced by," like, I would be like, "I don't know, dude." Like, that was so long ago. So you might be right.
I
Like,
don't know if I am. I think I might be going crazy. Which, you know, a movie as good as The Passion of Joan of Arc, it'll do that to you.
yeah.
It'll move you to the point where you're like, am I hearing some Interpol in this score right now? Is that some
I was more feeling like, um one of the pieces that came to mind for me, like during some of the more like emotional moments, was like the opening piece from Mozart's Requiem.
Yeah, that probably makes more sense
And
than me
yeah, I
being like,
mean, well, because the Requiem is very Christian tradition. So like it wouldn't surprise me if like requiems throughout history were used as like inspiration for the score.
yeah.
It feels very Requiem, but I
A
don't know.
beautiful score nonetheless.
I love it. I'm definitely gonna be listening to it.
Yeah, it was so good. Yeah, Val, anything else that you wanted to mention before we get to recommendations?
I think I'm good. I think I talked about everything I wanted to talk about. So yeah, let's get to recommendations. I'm really interested to hear what your recommendations are.
I'm very interested to hear what your recommendations are.
Okay.
So this will
Okay.
be fun.
All right.
So what we're gonna do, we're gonna recommend three things each
Okay.
for the Passion of Joan of Arc. At least one of those things has to be another movie. The other two things, however, can be any and everything else. It could be more movies, be a TV show, book, an album,
All right.
um, a video game, really
Oh,
anything. The connections to the Passion of Joan of Arc can be as loose or on the nose as we like. Three and only three, and no movies that are in the canon. Um, so
oh,
no The Adventures of Robin Hood,
okay.
no 2001. Um, but Val, whenever you're ready, you'll give your first one. Give us a brief explanation for why you're recommending it. Ping pong it over to me. I'll give my first, and then we'll go back and forth until we've got three.
All right. Man, I mean, when you said video game, I was like, maybe I should reconsider one of my choices. But first one definitely for me that came to mind in this movie, not because it's a similar way it's shot or anything like that, or even a similar story, but more the theming of like the faith versus organized religion, is the film Silence by Martin Scorsese, because that is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
It is incredible. The two main cast members, Adam Driver and Andrew Garfield, are amazing in the role. I don't think you can watch that movie and not feel something. Like it is so well done. It's a true story too, which is crazy. I've actually been reading the book.
Oh, nice.
Um, but it's inspired. It's either a true story. It's inspired by like a real guy that
Hmm.
did this and essentially created the underground church in Japan. And it's an incredible film. Martin Scorsese himself is Catholic, so
Hmm.
I'm sort of surprised because the movie is pretty pretty critical of the Catholic Church. But it's an incredible film. I think it's probably the best Christian film maybe ever made, or one of the best. I It's definitely up there for me.
It's one of my favorites. I absolutely love that movie. Just a yeah, great movie about just like unwavering faith. And
Yes.
um yeah, it's so good. So good. I cannot co-sign that recommendation like anymore. I love that movie so much. If I wish I could watch it like once a week.
Yeah. Oh, I need to watch it again. Okay, what's your recommendation?
It's great. My first recommendation is so while watching The Passion of Joan of Arc, I couldn't stop thinking about um what is a woman's place within the Catholic Church? Why are we uh so quick to shun them to the sidelines and not allow them to, fully operate within the church in all the ways that they can be and contribute to it in all these great ways. And a movie that I think is dealing with that in a lot of interesting ways. Movie from last year, one of my 10 favorite movies from last year, Conclave.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah, very
I
fun.
totally co-signed that recommendation. I loved Conclave. I thought that it handled everything really well. I mean, some people criticized the movie's climax. I think it's great. I think
Yeah, again, my big takeaway from Conclave is like, what is the place of women within the Catholic Church, and like why are we so set in? I don't know why I keep saying we.
no,
I
no, I
wasn't
get what
really
you're
like
saying.
I wasn't really like raised Catholic, but like I in many ways feel like culturally Catholic.
Yeah,
So,
no, I get that.
but why are we so quick to like be so exclusionary? And it like questions like how like arbitrary those rules end up being about why or like how women get forced to the sidelines. I don't want to give away spoilers, but like,
Yeah,
like that is like the big question at the end of the movie. So I get like why people don't love the climax, but I think if you watch it like through that lens, I
hmm
think it all becomes like extremely apparent in what it wants to be about.
I agree, and I think that's part of the reason that Isabella Rossellini got the nomination is
Hmm.
because even though she's in the movie for so little of a time, she is a presence in that film for sure. And when she is on screen, she really does command the scene.
Yeah,
So, yeah, even though she is kind of on the sideline, she is a pivotal role in that movie for
it's
sure.
very intentional, and it's very intentional that her scenes are so limited, right?
Yeah,
Because like of again what the entire movie is about.
yeah,
But also a
100%.
very fun watch. Beautiful cinematography, all that stuff. So like highly
Yeah,
recommend.
yeah, I would definitely recommend it as well.
Yeah.
I thought about making that one of my recommendations, so I'm glad I changed my mind.
I was scared that it was going to be one of yours, but as we were talking, I was like, she's definitely going to recommend Silence.
Yeah,
Either
I thought,
Silence
well,
or there was another Scorsese movie that I was thinking,
what
which
Scorsese movie were you thinking?
we'll wait to the end,
Okay,
and then,
okay.
then
Because I'm
we'll
like, if
see.
it's one I haven't seen, I'm gonna like go
Yeah.
watch it. But
What's your second one?
all right, second recommendations, totally different, but still kind of in the realm of like women's role, but also like what is faith and what does faith look like in a positive way, but also in a negative way. And my recommendation is going to be Saint Maud, directed by Rose Glass. This movie's not going to be for everyone. I think if you saw Love Lies Bleeding and liked it, then you should definitely check out her directorial debut with Saint Maud. The actress who's in it is currently playing Galadriel on Rings of Power, so good for her getting her bag. But she is incredible in this movie. Like, this movie is very much about religious mania and what
Mm,
drives people to like ultra religiosity, and like where does faith stop and it becomes something else. And it's a horror film. It's not crazy gory though, so I think the more squeamish screenagers would still be fine with this one.
yeah,
It's a great movie. I think if you're interested in like a more sinister religious horror, definitely check it out.
nice. I've been meaning to watch that for a while, and I did really dig Love Lies Bleeding, so I
Definitely
think I
check it out.
gotta
It's on Hulu. It's
I
good.
think I gotta watch. Who knows? Maybe it'll make an appearance in movies to stream
Hey,
at some
hey,
point.
I'm,
Yeah,
I'm helping you out.
I will give you credit if it does end up making it after I watch it. But
All right. Well, I hope you enjoy it. It's a very good movie.
that's an awesome recommendation. Um, for my second, I've got all movies because,
Okay,
of
that's fine.
course, I can only think of the world through movies. Um, this might be a movie that I've recommended before, but if so, whatever. It's a great movie. It should be in the canon. But I was thinking about a movie that is also about sort of like watching someone in real time experience unimaginable brutality. and also at some point get their hair cut on screen. Uh,
Oh, are you about to
um,
recommend my favorite movie of all time?
oh, well, it depends because there were two famous haircutting scenes that I think are very much so drawing from this movie. But I'm recommending Come and See. Were
Oh,
you
that's a
thinking V for
oh,
Vendetta?
I was.
Yeah. Well, that was definitely the other haircutting scene that I was thinking about recommending. But I do think that Come and See also is about us going on the journey of like watching someone experience again just like insane unimaginable brutality from a
Mhm.
like in Come and See it as a much more evil force in Nazi Germany than just like the Catholic Church. People can say what they will about the Catholic Church. I will say what I will about the Catholic Church, but I don't think that they are as just like obviously evil as
Yeah,
Nazis. But again, about two characters who experience that, and we like experience it with them in what feels like real time. Like you can tell that everything is done in a chronological way, and that the actor is going through that pain and suffering
yeah.
in the chronological order that makes it like that much more real, that much more raw, as we're going through it. So again, I think I've recommended it before in previous episodes, but it should be in the canon. So I'll keep recommending it until it eventually makes it into the canon.
I have not seen Come and See. I've heard of Come and See. I think it's a really interesting movie based on what I know because it's kind of just not about the coolness of war. It's more like about the like brutality and what it does to a country and a community and the individuals. So I want to see it. I need to emotionally prepare myself because I know that that movie's dark.
It's pretty intense. I'm a sick individual and I've seen it multiple times. I have the Criterion Blu-ray, and it's one of those movies that most people see once and they're like, "Wow, that was so moving. I never need to watch that again."
Like
And I'm
Grave of the
like,
Fireflies.
"Yeah," and I'm like, fuck it. Thursday
Oh,
night, let's fire up, Come and See.
that's so funny. No, I need to watch it. I know it's like one of those all-timer
Yeah,
movies.
I'm recommending it, so check it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, I might have to check it out. All
What's
right.
what's your third one?
My third one, I was back and forth on recommending a video game, but I think I'm going to stick with my original recommendation, which is a television show, which I think falls in line with all of the stuff we talked about like faith and organized religion and what does faith look like in a way we can't understand. And that is Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass, which I think is probably one of the best miniseries of all time. I know that people like Haunting of Hill House more,
Mhm.
but Midnight Mass is just an incredible show in what it does with its cast and what it does about faith. And Mike Flanagan himself is not like a practicing Christian at all. And he said, like, I am a firm atheist, but he still has kind of a love and respect for the church community. And
Mhm.
he sort of funnels that into Midnight Mass. And it's about so many things too. It's about like alcoholism and it's about like, it deals some really heavy stuff, but it's ultimately like a story of hope and like the hope that people find in community and in faith. And like, if you haven't watched it, you really should. It's so good. I cry every time. I watch it every single year.
Is it
And
spooky?
it is spooky. I think that for most of it is a real slow burn. So like for
Mhm.
I think it's 7 episodes, and for like 6 of them, like there's almost no gore. So like the last one is really where everything ramps up to 10.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, if you watched Haunting of Hill House, then you can definitely handle Midnight Mass. I will warn there is an animal death. It's a pretty gruesome animal death,
Oh no.
unfortunately, in the first episode. So, yeah, if you don't like, does the dog die? The dog does die. I'm sorry to say, but you can watch it, look it up online, and it'll warn you for when it happens. And just remember
Yeah.
that, like, they gave the dog like a foaming treat or whatever, and he's fine. He's okay.
The acting dog is okay.
Yeah, he didn't really die. He's fine.
That's good to know. I have heard good things about that show. I know a bunch of people out there are Flanagan heads, so
I'm a
I
Flanagan head.
I appreciate that recommendation.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm a Flanagan head, but I get why the folks appreciate him. I
Yeah,
understand the appeal.
if you've never seen anything Flanagan, I would recommend starting with Oculus because I think
Okay.
it's like his maybe not his best. I mean, Haunting of Hill House is objectively his best thing, but Oculus is probably his best movie, other
Okay.
than Doctor Sleep.
Big Doctor Sleep fans over here.
Oh, love
Yeah.
Doctor Sleep. I read the book and the movie. It's perfect. It bombed for no reason. It was so good.
Yeah. I okay, for my third recommendation.
Okay.
I'm not going to recommend a Flanagan vehicle.
Okay.
I'm going to recommend another movie. This probably should have been my second movie, but it's a great movie. So, The Passion of Joan of Arc is really great at photographing close-ups of people's faces. This is one of the best examples that you'll see of like someone knowing how to capture the human face on screen. There, it seems like it should be an easy thing to do, but when you think about it, there really aren't that many people who are really amazing at photographing faces of actors and like
Mm.
capturing like all of the emotion and beauty within the human face. So I was trying to think of a movie that I think is really good at that. And a director who I think is amazing at doing that is Barry Jenkins. And I think one of his best examples of that is If Beale Street Could Talk. And I don't think
Oh,
it's a movie that enough people have seen. That movie kicks ass. Everyone should go watch it. There's not much else that it has in common with The Passion of Joan of Arc besides just like if you want to see stunning photography of the human face, both of these movies feature that.
okay.
And just capturing like all of the emotional depth that can be found within the human face.
Yeah, good to know because that has been recommended to me by my coworkers, and I've been meaning to watch it. Sort of fell off my radar, so I'll definitely have to check that out.
Very, very good movie. Um, well, Val, this has been so much fun.
Yeah.
Now I can mention the other Scorsese movie that I thought about recommending that I wasn't sure if you were maybe going to recommend.
Uh-huh.
Um, all obviously about faith, spirituality, also about someone who gets brutalized um, by people, you know, throughout the course of a movie. They have their own passion, I guess we could say. I was thinking The Last Temptation of Christ.
Oh, see, I've never actually seen that, and I would probably love it.
Oh, if you
So,
want a good Christian movie or just movie about religion, that's check that out. That'll be
yeah,
a little bonus recommendation for us. I know that I've recommended that movie like 3 times on the show, so I couldn't do it again.
yeah. I'm definitely gonna have to watch that movie.
Um, yeah, great movie, ton of great movies, great recommendations, a great TV show,
Mm,
Passion of Joan of Arc. We
yeah,
did it.
did it.
Amazing stuff. Thank you
Yeah,
so much again for joining.
yeah.
Hope to
No, it
have
was
you
so
on
much
again.
fun. Like, invite me back for any more religious movies.
Yeah. All of the other religious movies, you'll be the first call. We'll definitely have you on.
When Last Temptation of Christ gets added to the canon.
Yeah. I think 2001 is a very spiritual movie.
2001. I haven't seen 2001. See, this is my problem of like I mentioned at the top of the episode that like I was raised in a cult and like I am still sort of catching up on like these movies that are like core
Yeah.
movies I should have seen. But that's the great thing about the canon though is
It gives you a
um
list of all the movies you got to
yeah,
watch.
it's I'm kind of like, oh, this is a movie I need to check out and I've been slowly like reintegrating myself into movie culture over the past
Amazing.
10 years.
Well, Val, if people want to read your movie thoughts outside of Screen Age Wasteland, are you on Letterbox? Where can folks find you online for all that good stuff?
Hell yeah. Well, I am mostly on Letterbox, though I sometimes forget to post until it's like 2 weeks after I've seen a movie. But it's Val underscore more. I am the same username on Blue Sky. If you're on Blue Sky, you can follow me. Again, I'm not as active as I could be, but maybe that'll change. Maybe I'll become more active during the summer. So yeah, the Screen Age Wasteland that I'm still posting reviews. There's going to be a review up. I haven't written it yet. I'll write it after this of Another Simple Favor, probably later
Oh,
this week.
nice.
the sequel to the Anna Kendrick Blake Lively movie. So
Amazing.
yeah,
Well, that'll probably be out by the time this episode is released.
probably.
So
Yeah.
yeah, folks should definitely check that out. And all of your other reviews, they're all great.
Yeah.
We were talking before we started recording about how by next year, hopefully, Screen Age Wasteland will have several Rotten Tomato approved critics,
Hell
including
yeah.
you, including me, hopefully, including some
Yeah. I'm
others.
rooting
So
for us.
yeah, uh, we're we're gunning for it. So
Yeah.
let's make it happen. There's going to be a ton of great reviews on the website from Val and from all of your other favorite writers, including Mr. Jacob Holmes, who will be joining us next week and the week after. But next week we're going to be talking Bambi. The week after
Oh
we'll be talking Snow
yeah.
White and the Seven Dwarves. He has apparently cornered the market as our Disney animation guy. So that should be fun. Kind of a different vibe from The Passion of Joan of Arc, but
Still a great score.
also a
Incredible
great
score.
score.
Yeah.
Should be a very fun conversation with Jacob. As always, Screenagers, hope to see you there. We'll be here on the same feed that you're catching us right now. And as always, we will see all of you lovely folks in the wasteland.
All right. Bye.